Mental health in the Black community is typically treated as a taboo topic that should not be discussed. This causes many people not to seek help and others to not know resources exist to help them. With Black mental health not being commonly discussed, this causes many people to get rare representations from media such as film. For people facing the same issues but have no access to resources to help them, they may see this media as a representation of who they are or how others see them. However, depictions of mental health are often inaccurate and negative. These negative depictions create stigma around mental health and at times make people less likely to seek help because they are fearful of judgment. This also causes misrepresentations of mental health issues and creates stereotypes that affect how the general public views people struggling with trauma and mental health issues. Research shows that African Americans are 36% less likely to receive mental health help treatment, but 37% more likely to die by suicide. This highlights an obvious lack of prioritization in the Black community regarding discussions of mental health. And because many people are only seeing these discussions on screen, having positive depictions of dealing with mental health in films becomes even more important. While there is often suffering in Black films, the Black female characters are often the center of much of this mental health struggle compared to their male counterparts. Additionally, they suffer from issues that plague women more than they do men, such as rape and incest. The portrayal of racial struggles that African Americans face, such as racism and discrimination, are often included in Black films as well. The combination of all these factors make the Black female experience in films unique and irreplicable by other groups. That is why observing their depictions on screen is especially valuable, because there are few people who understand the Black female experience other than what is presented to them. If Black women are misrepresented or shown in a negative light when dealing with trauma, it can paint a picture of them for the general public that is not accurate or authentic. I have chosen to look at 4 films that showcase the trauma of Black women and observe how they depict its effects within the films. These films are Beloved, The Color Purple, Precious, and For Color Girls. I chose these specific films for the roles they play in the Black community and because they are often seen as controversial for their subject matter or their depictions of that subject matter. The first film is Beloved, which takes place in 1873 in Ohio after slavery is abolished, and it follows former slave Sefti and her daughter Denver. An old friend of Sefti's called Paula D comes to visit her and proposes to stay and live with her. Sometimes after his arrival, Denver finds a woman in their yard who is named Beloved, and they take her in. After Paul D tells a co-worker that he intends to start a family with Sefti, it is revealed that Sefti killed her oldest daughter and attempted to kill her other children. This occurred after she was raped by a slave owner's nephews and ran away. The slave owner came to claim Sefti and her children, and she believed her children would be better off dead than enslaved in the condition she lived in. After being confronted by Paul D, she realizes that Beloved is a reincarnation of her daughter, and this is understood to be the reason Beloved came to haunt Sefti in her home. Sefti tries to appease Beloved while ignoring her daughter Denver, which leads to her life and home deteriorating. This ghost takes everything from her love, her child, and her ability to live. Sefti's well-being also declined, and she is no longer able to work, and she spends all her money trying to buy gifts to make Beloved happy. Denver leaves the home to seek employment and bring back money. While Denver is gone, the women from the town perform an exorcism on Sefti, and Beloved disappears. However, Sefti was left sick and bedridden, and Denver and Paul D became her caretakers. This film, while more exaggerated in nature, shows how consuming guilt and trauma can be. Beloved was a manifestation of both for Sefti, and showed how debilitating it can be to go through and process traumatizing events. The film also presents the moral dilemma of whether Sefti was wrong or right for what she did in an attempt to save her children from what she deemed to be a bad life. This is partially what made the film so controversial. The film does a good job at representing how impactful trauma can be on someone. However, some depictions can be seen as problematic. The second film is The Color Purple, which takes place between 1909 and 1940 in Georgia. The film tells the story of a young girl named Celie who is separated from her sister Nettie when she is given away as a wife to a man named Mister, who abuses and mistreats her. When she was home, she was raped by her father and birthed 2 children who were taken away from her. Nettie runs away from home to Celie and teaches her to read and write when she comes home from school each day. However, Nettie is kicked out when Mister attempts to rape her and the girl fights back. Celie uses the knowledge her sister taught her to write her letters. When Celie stops hearing back from her, she fears Nettie is dead. Another character named Shug is introduced. She is the mistress of Mr. and has returned after traveling for years. At first, she is mean to Celie, but she admits she was jealous because Celie was receiving attention from Mr. The two women become close, and Suge tells Celie that she's moving to Memphis. Celie attempts to pack up to go with Suge, but is caught by Mr. and is once again left alone. 8 years pass and Suge returns. She finds a letter in the mail for Celie and gives it to her. It is from Nettie, telling Celie that she is in Africa with her 2 children. Celie and Suge realize that Mr. has been hiding the letters that her sister had been sending for over 8 years, and they find the stash of letters hidden in a trunk upstairs. Suge's presence gives her the confidence she needs to stand up to Mr., and she leaves with Suge to go to Memphis. At the end of the film, Celie is reunited with her sister and 2 children. The controversy of this film comes from the discussion of rape and abuse that involves children. Celie is sexually abused constantly throughout the film, and Mr. attempts to rape her sister Nettie as well. It is a subject that is not handled with much care. However, for the time period in which the story takes place, it is shown in a rather realistic light, despite how disturbing it might be. This film highlights how the relationships of others can pull one through tough times. Celie's relationship with other women is what motivated her throughout the film. Her relationship with Suge gave her the strength to fight back against Mr., and her relationship with her sister allowed her to keep pushing forward without knowing whether her sister was alive or not. The third film is called Precious, and it takes place in 1980s Harlem and follows a teenage girl named Precious. Precious is 16, has a daughter, and is pregnant with a second child. She's been held back in school and is illiterate. The story follows her as she enrolls in an alternative school to help her learn to read and write. The film focuses heavily on the struggle and trauma of the young character, who is physically and sexually abused by her mother and father. Precious has to deal with being seen as unattractive and undesirable as well. She copes by fantasizing and escaping the reality of her life. She dreams about being thin and white and having a boyfriend who is of light complexion. This is her version of being happy, and we see her fantasizing during multiple difficult scenes throughout the film. Over the course of the film, Precious is able to grow and learn. She is more confident in herself and her abilities, and is able to get away from her mother. She lived with her teacher, Miss Rain, after her mother attempted to kill her in a rage for sleeping with her husband and making him leave. Towards the end of the film, Precious is informed that her father has died of AIDS, and her mother tells her she should get tested as well. After she does, Precious learns that she has AIDS. This leads to a very impactful scene where Miss Rain encourages Precious to write her story in her journal, and this becomes an outlet for the young girl. Precious won a literacy award and was able to move into a halfway house after completing her alternative school studies, and she had a system of people who loved and supported her. Her mother asked to speak with Precious in an attempt to get her to move back home. However, there's a lot of trauma unpacked as the audience learned that Precious was molested by her father since she was a baby. Her mother knew and did nothing to help or stop the abuse. Precious stands up for herself and leaves, not allowing her mother to control her life anymore. While all does seem to be going well for Precious, the film ends with the knowledge that the young girl will likely die from AIDS. This film has become very notorious within the Black community for its heavy subject matter and the character of Mary, the mother. In the end, Precious was given a positive outlet through her writing, school, and the community of women she was able to grow while being in school. There was a lot of positive development for the young girl as she was able to learn to read and write and stand up for herself against her abusive mother. Despite all the hope, there is the knowledge that Precious had an incurable disease and that she would not be able to live to see through the development she underwent. The last film is called For Colored Girls, based on the book For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide. Mental health and trauma play a key role in this film, and it highlights the different kinds of struggles that people encounter despite the differences in their lifestyles and backgrounds. The film is set in 1970s New York and follows 4 main women who are connected through the people each of them know. Each woman is dealing with their own issues. Nyla, a younger woman, becomes pregnant after her first time having sex on the night of her graduation. Joe's husband is arrested after being caught having sex in public with a man, but Joe is unaware of why he was arrested. Crystal has an alcoholic boyfriend who is dealing with PTSD from his time in the military. He is physically and verbally abusive towards Crystal and their 2 children. Their apartment manager calls for a welfare check on the children. Within all this struggle, life seems to be going well for Yasmin, who is a dance instructor and has met a man named Bill who appears to share her love for dance. The culmination of the film, however, includes scenes for all the characters that are very heavy and dramatic. Nyla's sister sends her to a sketchy area alone to have an illegal abortion. The procedure becomes complicated and she's hospitalized. She begins to recount the fear of being alone during the experience. The audience learns that Nyla's mother took her sister Tangi to the same place to get an abortion when she was younger. We also learn that the trauma has been passed down in the family. Tangi became hypersexual because of the sexual abuse she endured from her grandfather, and their mother became a hyper-religious hoarder from the sexual abuse she endured from her father, the same man who abused Tangi. After Nyla returns from the hospital, her mother attempts to perform an exorcism on her. Nyla runs away and eventually is able to talk to her sister. Tangi explains that she was unable to show love for others because her self-hatred was so strong. The sisters were able to bond with each other because they realized they were not each other's enemy and that they were going through similarly difficult situations. Jo learns that her husband has been sleeping with men, and she finally confronts him after she learns he's contracted HIV. She was betrayed by the person who she loved and who was supposed to love her. She knew that he was sleeping with men, but tried to ignore it until it was too late and impacted her with a disease that she would not be able to get rid of. She was now faced with the real possibility that she may lose her life. After this realization, she decided to reclaim her life by asking for a divorce and telling him to leave. Yasmin continues seeing Bill until he violently rapes her after she invites him over to her apartment for dinner. After the situation, she is told about all the things people might say about her, such as you invited him in and you must have wanted it. The experience leaves Yasmin traumatized and isolates herself from others. She can be seen wielding a knife in her home as she hears the doorbell ringing, fearing that Bill might come back to hurt her. Yasmin felt as though she could not trust anyone because her ideas of rape had changed. She previously believed that it was only strangers, but realized that the people you know can hurt you as well. Yasmin tries to cope through her trauma through her love for dance. Later, Yasmin is asked to identify a body, and she learns that Bill was killed after attempting to rape someone else. Crystal's boyfriend goes into a drunken rage and accuses Crystal of cheating on him. He becomes delusional and begins to believe the children are actually another man's, and this leads to him killing both their children by dropping them out of a window, where many onlookers try to intervene down below. Crystal is later seen trying to scrub the blood of her children from the concrete, distraught by the fact that people simply walked over it. Crystal was also confronted by the fact that she was also partially to blame for what happened to her children, because she knew her boyfriend was violent and that his behavior was inappropriate, yet she kept him in her apartment and around her children. The pain and mental turmoil takes its toll on Crystal, and she attempts to kill herself by overdosing on pills. She's found unconscious but survives after being taken to the hospital. Later, Crystal is invited to join the other women at a gathering for Nyla at the community center. While she does initially decline, she's convinced to attend, and in the end, the women are able to come together and comfort her. The combination of these scenes created a lot of controversy around the film. Themes such as sexual and physical abuse are depicted in ways that are seen as graphic and disturbing. The on-screen death of the children could also be intense for viewers. Additionally, there is very little time to process each event as they occur, which makes the film overwhelming. The women do eventually develop a support system that enables them to keep going and pushing through their struggle. All four films show the effects that sexual abuse and rape have on women. While each of the women react differently, the overwhelmingly negative impact that it had on the women and the girls in each film is very obvious. However, each film did have scenes that depicted the violent acts, which contributed to why many people believe these films were seen as controversial. While they are storytelling devices, not all of the scenes need to be shown as graphically as they were. Another thing that was seen across all the films was the role that the people around the characters played and how they were able to survive and keep living despite their trauma. In The Color Purple, the sister and Suge both play a large role in keeping Celie positive despite everything she went through. And Precious, her teacher, and her classmates motivated her to do better in life than what she believed she was capable of. Similarly, in For Colored Girls, the women were able to support each other in the end through the trauma that each of them were facing. In conclusion, these films show that everyone copes with trauma differently. Some may use art or physical expression to help, others may rely on the people around them, and some may feel as though it is all too much. There is no right or wrong way to feel your emotions or experience your trauma. Sometimes it may be debilitating and impossible to recover from, and others it may push you to do better and thrive.